The Democratic National Convention has kicked off, with Democrats posturing themselves in opposition to the Republicans and Mitt Romney. What have they said, and what does their platform represent? I'm Alan Barton. Stand by for Front Page. Joining me in studio, Rituparna Basu, writer at the Ayn Rand Center for Individual Rights, and Terry Jones, associate editor for Investors Business Daily. At the convention, the delegates kind of got around to recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and in God you trust and all that stuff. They took a little heat for excluding that, but they did encounter some resistance. Let's take a look at how that went.
I'll do that one more time. All those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 have voted in the affirmative. The motion is adopted, and the platform has been amended as shown on the screen. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That was truly a laughable, sort of almost Soviet moment. I mean, that was the third time he did that. The first time, the nays were overwhelmingly in the majority. He just kept on going, let's do that again. And Ragosa is not like the smartest guy in the world. You can see him panicking, the woman whispering in his ear, like, just call it, just get us out of here. Terry, can you tell us a little bit more about how this came about, this ridiculous controversy? Boy, they stepped in it.
Oh, they really did. You could see the gears grinding, too, in his brain. Well, the thing is, they did remove these things. It was intentional. It wasn't a technical slip-up, as Debbie Wasserman Schultz suggested, the DNC chairman. It was an intentional thing, and they meant to remove both the word God.
Because when they justified it, when the hell was raised first time, they said, well, this is Obama's policy on Israel.
Yeah.
They're just representing Obama's policy.
That was it.
And you were like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and quite likely his policy on God, if he has a policy. But, it says a lot about a party that, that boos the mere pro forma mention of God in a document. I mean, it tells you how profoundly out of step they are culturally with the rest of America, which is 75% religious.
And then, Ritu, on the issue of Israel, the Jewish vote has overwhelmingly gone Democratic for as long as it's in the last 40 years. But it seems clear that Republicans have really become, in a way, the more pro-Israel party, at least at this moment. Do you think that this may actually finally resonate with the Jewish voter, and they may sort of depart the plantation?
I mean, I think what this shows more than anything about how the Democrats feel about Israel or Jerusalem or God and religion, I think it just shows the parties don't really stand for anything. I mean, at this point, they're just pandering. They're just trying to appease different pressure groups. They've got all sorts of goodies and slogans that they have to put in there to, just appease these pressure groups. That's what happens in a mixed economy.
I was listening to Rush, and he made the point that after 9 o'clock on Tuesday, all of a sudden the convention became very sort of middle of the road, the San Antonio Mayor Castro talking about like pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. And I was like, have I ever heard President Obama say pulling yourself up by your bootstraps is a value? And all of a sudden, so they were attacking, and then they obviously stated what they really believe, which is that they don't want God in the platform. They don't want Israel in the platform. Then they do this incredibly awkward backtrack to cater to particular groups and not seem too extreme. It's really something. Of course, there's a lot of buzz about Michelle Obama's speech. Why don't we hear a little bit of what the First Lady had to say?
I love that for Barack, there is no such thing as us and them. He doesn't care whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or none of the above. He knows that we all love our country, and he is always ready to listen to good ideas. He's always looking for the very best in everyone he meets. And he reminds me that we are playing a long game here, and that change is hard, and change is slow, and it never happens all at once, but eventually we get there. We always do.
We will get there. Second term, maybe a third term. We may need to amend the Constitution to give Barack Obama a third term, because change, it's really, 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 really hard. It's just really hard. But the idea that she said that he doesn't see us and them, There's a Woodward book about to come out that says he didn't have Boehner's phone number after 2 years in office when the Republicans won in 2010. They didn't have his phone number to congratulate him.
It took a year and a half for them to get his phone number.
So us and them, I mean, they ran essentially a dictatorial government in the first 2 years here, cramming everything that they could through without even talking to the Republicans.
They never consulted.
Now,
with
this is not, obviously the first lady, the wives of these candidates are going to make eloquent, impassioned, emotional appeals to back up their guys. I don't think there's anything offensive about it. But what do you think of the message here, and maybe speak to what I said about Ritu's point, that they're just tacking to appeal to certain groups, rather than state what they believe?
They are, and there are dog whistle words in there, like change. Like change is inevitable and it's going to come. Well, yes, change is inevitable, but what kind of change? Certainly, I don't want to be forced marched down that long road with the rest of the people in America toward the kind of change they see. And the other thing is, and this, you go through her whole speech. She created this sort of hagiography of her upbringing and Barack's upbringing that was totally at odds with reality.
What's cracking me up is that everyone seems now to be like, hey, man, I had it rough. We had a sofa. It had a hole in it. Yeah. It had a hole in the sofa. Everyone who wants to be ahead in politics at some point has to admit that they had a really crappy coffee table and they used the piano stool as a dinner table, and that's now part of the curriculum, the CV of any politics. An interesting video played during the DNC, and it possibly casts some light on how Democrats really view government. Let's take a look.
We are committed to all people. We do believe you can use government in a good way. Government's the only thing that we all belong to. We're in different churches, different clubs, but we're together as a part of our city or our county or our state.
So, unintentional or intentional there, the idea that government is the only thing we all belong to. Kind of revealing.
No, I don't think it's unintentional. I mean, there's an intentional effort from the left to redefine what America means. What is the American dream? I mean, we heard a lot about this at the convention. What's the American dream? And to them, it is Julia, right? Julia's life, from cradle to grave. The government is in your life. It is telling you what to do. It is picking your neighbor's pockets to give you health care, to give you anything you want. And that's what they really believe. And obviously, that's not the American dream, but they're trying to change it.
Yeah, I've been waiting for the Julia parody that never occurred. I was hoping there was going to be a Julia parody at the Republican convention. For those of you who don't know, the theme of this year's campaign is forward. Forward. So in that spirit, there was a president of the United States between 1992 and 2000. His name was Bill Clinton, and he spoke at the convention because this is a convention about forward. Let's see what he had to say.
Since 1961, for 52 years now, the Republicans have held the White House 28 years, the Democrats 24. In those 52 years, our private economy has produced 66 million private sector jobs. So what's the job score? Republicans, 24 million, Democrats, 42.
Wow, what website do you got to go to, Mr. President, to find these little facts that you could pull out? And what were the congressional orientations during those years that the president, I mean, he was hemmed in by a completely Republican Congress. Yeah. But anyway, that was at a minute about 173 of Bill Clinton's speech. There were about 5 people who were still awake to hear these figures that he was talking about. Terry, what did you think of the big dog, as he is known?
The big dog, as always, as we were talking about earlier, the first 15 or 20 minutes was boffo. I mean, real classic Bill Clinton, but then it droned on and became more like a policy seminar in a bad graduate school.
I still think it was a covert dig at Obama, because those guys don't like each other, so you can just picture Obama backstage.
Went forever.
That guy's ego doesn't take too many people an hour-long speech before you get to walk on stage.
Well, I mean, even the approach here. I mean, he talks about what was the score. Mm-hmm. Well, quite honestly, policies do matter, but it's not presidents that create jobs; it's businesses. And Bill Clinton, a lot of jobs were created during his years in office, but they were a result of a few little things like the Pentium chip.
Yeah.
like Windows 95, like
One
the
of
internet.
like the biggest technological revolution since
in the history, which he had nothing to do with.
Yeah, Al
But he
Gore
was-
did that.
Well, Al Gore did it all.
Yeah.
But he was the beneficiary of it, and has has remained sort of favorably viewed over these years because he was so successful.
Ritu, what's your reaction to this forward to the 1990s?
I mean, there's this whole focus on both the left and right about how many jobs did we create. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily the standard by which to judge an economy or to judge if someone's done a good job. It's not really telling you a lot of evidence. I mean, there's a lot of good reasons, or other reasons why jobs come and jobs go. There's some industries that are just on the decline because people say they don't want to buy GM cars. You'd expect people in that industry to lose jobs. So that by itself does not really say anything. The issue is, I think, what Terry is saying, that you need freedom. You need freedom for businesses to be able to take risks, to innovate, to keep what they earn and invest in, and that's how you judge whether someone's done a good
I wish
job.
I'd hear a charismatic politician just explain that government doesn't create a single job. It moves jobs where it sees fit to create it through force and taxation. If someone could really make that point in a clear and charismatic way, boy, I would be for it. All right, for Terry and Rituparna, I'm Alan Barton. You've been watching Front Page.